Well, good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana weather. It is about 6:45 on Sunday night, and lots to talk about. We're tracking two particular storm systems that could bring some accumulating snowfall, at least to the area, if not at least to the region, and over the next 7 days. So we'll get right into the data. Just real quickly to show you, the cold front has now passed through, and you can see that very clearly with the temperatures. We're already here at 6:45. We're already at 30 degrees in Huntingburg. 20 is already showing up just to our west, and that's going to be filtering in our way. If I just zoom out, notice the bitter cold temperatures up here around Minneapolis, stretching all the way into central Illinois. That's moving our way. Now, I don't expect we're going to hit below freezing temperatures here anytime within the next few days, but certainly we're going to go down to a low, the upper teens into the low 20s tonight. And so the cold air that you see here in northern Illinois is sort of what's going to get it. Unfortunately, I don't think that we'll even break 30 tomorrow. It looks just pretty cold from the way things appear. And indications are that it's going to stay that way for a while. Not necessarily the 20s, but this little tease that we had this weekend, unfortunately, is going to be gone. All right, you've seen this chart before. What we're looking at here are height anomalies in the atmosphere. Scientific, I know, but I always like to make weather simple for you guys. I don't like to put it in big terms that you can't understand. So again, here's what you need to know. The warm colors, the reds, the yellows, and these kind of brown tones, that's warmer than normal air. The blues, the greens, all the way down into these grays, when you get down to the extreme cold temperatures, that's colder than normal air. What you see right here, we're looking at through the next 16 days, we're looking at this is height anomalies, but what this is going to correspond to is temperature anomalies for us. Keep in mind that 40 degrees is our climatological normal temperature for this time of the year. So if it's below normal, then we're going to be at least in the 30s, if not lower. So as we put this into motion, just look at all of the sea of blue and even some green at times hanging down into our area. Indiana is right about in here. So let me continue to put this into motion, and what you see is we stay within the realm of mostly within these blues, at times going back maybe just to the first shades of brown, which would be pretty much close to the normal category, which would be around 40. But just what I wanted to show you with this is the overall pattern is a cold pattern. And by the way, what you see up here, let's just kind of get you an idea of what you're seeing. This up in here in Canada, what we're talking about is called the polar vortex. Now, the polar vortex is going to rotate around anywhere from where it's at now, spin all the way up around in here, and this is just sort of a sea of polar air. And bipolar, whether sometimes you say, you hear me talk about we had an Arctic blast once in a blue moon, you'll hear me talk about we had a polar blast. Really what that's defining is where the cold air came from. If it's an Arctic blast, we're talking about it's coming more from the Arctic. The polar blast, we're talking about from the North Pole, and which is up in the Arctic too. I know it's a bit confusing. So, but basically, just understand the polar vortex. Whenever it starts breaking off little pieces of cold weather, when it's on the move, it can get ridiculously cold around here, and that's exactly what you're seeing. You see, essentially, it's sort of breaking off into two pieces of energy here, and one of those pieces starts to dip down over us. In particular, this is for January the 3rd. Here's January the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. What you're going to see if you take a look at this is just a cold pattern. And so we've looked at this before as well, the Arctic Oscillation. Just remember on the Arctic Oscillation, anything below the zero line means cold weather is on the move from that polar vortex, and it's in the negative, so that means cold air is available to cause trouble for us here in our part of the United States. And I just wanted to show you this, that it is forecast to pretty much stay negative all the way through at least the 14th here. So that indicates a cold pattern. In fact, if you just take a look at the raw data from this morning's GFS ensembles, remember 40 degrees is normal, so New Year's Day it brings us up to about 40. I'm a little skeptical on some of these numbers here, but then notice where it goes from there. And a high of 22 on some days, and bouncing from anywhere from the low 20s to not over the mid 30s for the most part. So sometimes we may be looking at close to 20 degrees below normal. Sometimes we may be looking at only 5 degrees below normal, but nonetheless, below normal weather is on the way. Now, with that will come the danger of some snow systems, and that's what we want to talk about. Let me just go through real quickly on what the models are showing us, and we'll go through this. Here's what the GFS has to say. There's the rain as it moves off today. Keep in mind, here we are in Indiana right here. Remember that first blue line. We call it the 540 line. That's the rain-snow changeover line. So keep that in mind as we go throughout this. And notice the precipitation starting to move our way. We got a little clipper system here by the time we hit on Tuesday into the overnight hours, Monday night into Tuesday. That doesn't look to cause us much trouble. That looks more of a Michigan type of event. But then you notice we've got some more systems diving down from us. Low pressure starts to spin up, and it moves right over us. So here we are into Thursday. The GFS doesn't make much of an event out of this. And the Euro does make a little bit more of an event, as we'll see here in a minute. We put this in time, high pressure starts to build back in, but then we get another significant system developing just out to our west. And as we put this into motion, I want you to notice, first of all, as it moves in, here we are Sunday morning at, we'll stop here Sunday morning at 1 a.m. And you notice that first blue line is up here in northern Indiana, and so the indications are at this point, it would be rain at this point, whereas it would be snow at this point if we put it into motion just a little bit more. Notice how quickly those blue lines move towards us. Here we are finally here Sunday at 1 p.m. and you notice that rain-snow changeover line is getting very close to us. So from the GFS's indication, it stays rain for a little while, but then very quickly during the day on Sunday, it moves into an all-snow event and then pushes out of here. Now, that's just the GFS's interpretation. Let's take a look at the Euro model's interpretation as well. The Euro has been, usually in the past, I told you the Euro model is usually the most reliable. I don't really know what's wrong with the Euro lately. It's been surprising all of us in the meteorological community. It's not been as accurate as it has been in the past, and so we take it with a grain of salt, but nonetheless, it is the most reliable model usually that we have, so we want to pay pretty close attention to it because it does still get some things right. Hopefully this is just a cold pattern that it's not liking very well, and it'll work its way out of it. But here we are, and we'll fast forward here to about Thursday, and you notice it makes more of this system than what the GFS did. By far, it makes a bigger system. You've got these shades of green over us, which are this is liquid precipitation, but that would correspond into some heavier chunks of snow, especially over here in northern Indiana. Maybe not as much for us. But it is a more significant system than what the GFS was seeing, so we'll have to keep that in mind. I'll show you the snow accumulation totals here in just a second, but certainly more with the Euro. That moves out, high pressure takes over, but then again, you've got this other system moving in from the west. Euro also takes it as a rain event. Here we are by 1 on Sunday, and we're still over the red line, so that would be a rain event for us, but very quickly it pummels us into those blue lines and has heavy precipitation over us. The Euro actually wants to take this into a pretty decent little snowstorm for us on Sunday, so that's something we're going to have to watch, whereas the GFS gave us some snow, it didn't give us this much snow, and that's something that we're going to have to watch for sure. Then the Euro actually brings a secondary clipper system by it overnight on Monday night into Tuesday that could bring us. It doesn't look very impressive at this point, it's just some first light shades of gray, so maybe a few snow showers down by us. The Canadian model, the GEM, we can go ahead and take a look at it as well, and I just want you to note that it has a very similar look to it to the others. Here we come by Thursday. There's that system that's moving in. It brings us a little bit of snow, but again, as you'll see on the maps, the heavier shades of precipitation are up more in northern Indiana, so this would be a minor accumulation event for us. By the time you get into Sunday, though, here it comes. It starts us out as all rain for us as well. And then here we are at 7 p.m. and it is still rain for us. Now that is not the case with the GFS and the Euro model. So I point this out just to show you that there are some model discrepancies. And here we are, even at 1 a.m. in the morning, it's still rain for most of us. It doesn't turn over to snow for southern Indiana until the overnight hours, really. And then by that time, most of the precipitation is gone. So the GEM, because of that, you wouldn't think it would give that much of a snow accumulation to us. So let's just take a look at the model data as well. This is for next week's Well, I tell you what, let me just show you I'll go back to the euro. Let me show you the GFS first. I just want to show you this real quick because I've got a better graphic for the euro model that I can show you. But this is 24-hour accumulated precipitation totals. So we'll go to Thursday, and here's what it shows on Thursday, and you show basically some minor accumulations up for northern Indiana. The GFS at this particular time has really backed off, whereas it showed 2 to 3 inches of accumulation in yesterday's runs. Today's runs is not showing us much at all. Again, take that with a grain of salt because, as I've said many times in the past, the GFS model is not very accurate at medium range forecasting, which we are in right now. We're 4 days away from this, so take that with a grain of salt. And then as you come in on Sundays, you see we start to see a little bit of a precipitation over us. But again, these look like very minor snowfall accumulations from the way the GFS looks. As far as the euro, we can take a look at that as well. Again, if we, the GEM, you can see it takes the snow. Here we are Thursday at 7 p.m. It takes most of the snow all the way up into northern Indiana, leaves us with very minor accumulations. If we do more accumulations out here through Sunday, again, you see the snowfall accumulation starting to come down a little bit further south. So Sunday has a little bit bigger, but it has a very sharp cutoff where most of our counties in southern Indiana get next to nothing and all the way up to 2 inches and beyond in some of our more northern counties here in southern Indiana. So again, take that all with a grain of salt. Here's a couple of images from the Euro model that I put together just to make it more visually appealing side by side. This is what it does for the Thursday event. Now remember, yesterday it was given us, had this line was more down in this area. So take that with a grain of salt. But Thursday's event looks pretty minor from the Euro's perspective at this point. Sunday's looks pretty major. I mean, we're talking pockets of 7 inches here over southwest Indiana, and then less as you get over towards the Louisville area. But still 2 and 3 inches, and heavy snow totals up to our north. So again, like I say, take this all with a grain of salt, especially on the Sunday system. Anytime you're starting to deal with a system that's this far out. Really, snowfall totals this far out are fantasy, okay? We look at them and we want to see the pattern, and it helps us understand the pattern is cold and snowy. How much snow? Well, it's impossible to hone down with any good degree of accuracy this far out. So it may say 7 or 8 inches of snow for us here in southern Indiana at this time. The next run, it may say 2 or 3 inches of snow. But again, if it continues to point towards snow, we know we got something to work with and something to keep an eye out on. So, and that's what we'll be keeping an eye on over the next few days. So just, again, take that with a grain of salt. Here's another reason to take the Euro model with a grain of salt. As I said, it's just been having some problems performing lately. Here's high temperatures and low temperatures over the next over the next 10 days, really, 240 hours, excuse me. And the red line here is the 32-degree line. The 0 line, of course, is 0 degrees Fahrenheit. What I want you to notice as you get out into the extended period, it takes our high temperatures not even getting above freezing. And I can just put that on a visual map for us. Here on Wednesday at 7 a.m. next week, not this Wednesday, but a week from this Wednesday. This would be after Sunday's big snowfall, which looks to stick around. It's got our morning low at -23 in Huntingburg, -26 in Bloomington, -28 up in Indianapolis. Here is let me illustrate for you what I think about this. There you go. That's what I think about this. I'm not buying it. I'm very skeptical of this. I don't know whether somebody slipped the Euro model one too many bottles of Corona. Maybe it drunk all the way to the bottom to the worm. I don't know. But I'm having a hard time buying that we get into the -20s for this. So again, what does that tell you about our snowfall accumulations? Could it be just a bad run and fantasy there as well? We'll see. But as I said, take everything with a grain of salt that it's saying this far out at this point. You'll see this adjust. I don't think that we're going to be hitting into the -20s. But with a decent snowpack on the ground, yeah, single digits are likely, and maybe to a -1 or 2 like we saw with the last heavy snow. But certainly not into the -20s. I'm not buying that at this point. SouthernIndianaWeather.com, you can get the 7-day forecast. I won't go through it here for the sake of time. But again, you can just see it has a cold look to it. And unfortunately, that cold look just looks like it's going to stick around for a little while. I will have more details on these upcoming systems over the coming days as the models adjust. and expect that these models will adjust on totals. So we will see where it goes from here. Thanks for watching. For Southern Indiana Weather, I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Have a great night, folks. Take care.